All right. So I want to start off by saying good morning to everyone and thank you for joining us today. It just warms my heart to see so many of you on here. My name is Elisa Wiest. I'm the program manager at the Verona Senior Center, where I've been at for a little over 5 years. Since COVID, we've been running a lot of virtual programs via Zoom. And I just want to say congratulations to all of you for even being willing to navigate this with us. We appreciate you. We need you. Spread the word. Tell people how easy it is for Zoom to learn Zoom. I am more willing to help people learn how to do Zoom. I'm getting pretty confident in it now that I've been in it for almost a year. So, but on that note, I just want to welcome Neal Nybo. He is a negativity, I was going to say a negativity expert, but
that may be true.
That may be true. Yes, a positivity expert. And he actually lives in California. So it's only 11 o'clock his time right now, but Neal is known all over the world. And he is currently working with another kindness speaker, Nicole Phillips. And they actually just created a book that is available for purchase. So I will let Neal talk about that today. But again, you know, this day and age, we need to hear all about positivity and how we can develop our resilience against negativity in the world today. And the more positive we can be, just spreads that kindness and love throughout the world. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Neal and let him take it from here.
Thank you, Elisa. Well, I'm glad to be back. And we were together last week, and I'll give you a heads up. I'm going to ask you if you were here last week and you were with us, did you try anything that we talked about and did it work? So you can kind of get your courage up. I'll ask you to share that in just a minute. But I wanted to start with showing you this. Does anybody know what this is? So this was found in archaeologists found this in an early Cro-Magnon businessman's place. And this is what they used to use before cell phones, right? This is a pager. Oh my gosh. No, this actually was my pager. So we had just had our second child, Emily, and I worked about an hour away from home, and I didn't have an office at the time. And so I was really cut off from home unless I got to a payphone and called, because cell phones, you know, they didn't exist. So I bought a pager. And the point of a pager is that if somebody needs to get a hold of you, they type some little message into probably like 10 digits or something. It's big enough for a phone number to put in here. And then that gets sent to you, and then you go to a payphone and call them. So I bought one, and you know, you get like 30 free pages a month or something. And it was really only just for my wife to page me if there was any emergency. You know, and other people had it, but it was really for she and I to stay in touch. So after a couple weeks, she had never paged me. Which, you know, in one sense, that's a good thing, because it was for emergencies. So we haven't had any emergencies. But I said to her one night, after our 3-year-old was in bed, and after the, you know, 6-month-old, you know, was down and been fed, and, you know, everything that you can imagine goes on with 2 little kids at home. And I said to Carolyn, listen, you know, I get free pages. So anytime you're thinking of me, you don't have to put in your phone number or anything. You could just like put 1111, and then I know it's you and I know you're thinking about me. And she looked up from where she was writing her to-do list for the next day. Neal, I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. I'm not thinking about you. So I just said, well, I'm glad we've had this little chat. And I might as well have left my pager off for as many times as she ever paged me. And it's still blank. She still hasn't paged me. So, but the point of that is how much we want to be noticed. We want to know that others are thinking about us. They say that every human being's most favorite sound is the sound of their own name. Now, I don't know if that's completely true, but you know, I was working with somebody last week, and a new volunteer, and I got her name wrong, and I was very close. I kept saying Michaela, and it was, I still can't remember her real name. Sorry, I'm blanking. But I would call her, and she never turned around. She never turned around to look at me. And I finally had to go up to her again and say, tell me what your name is again. And it was something else. And I said, well, of course she didn't turn around to Michaela. That's not her name. But you can hear your name called out, you know, in a crowd, and you immediately recognize it when somebody's calling your name. So I said that we would talk this week about becoming irresistible. And an awful lot of becoming irresistible is recognizing other people, affirming other people. Now, I know we want to say, well, I thought we were going to talk about us. I want to know, you know, how do I become irresistible? Here's the secret. Be about other people. Other people don't really care so much about us. They care about themselves. And the more we express that we care about them, the more they are going to be interested in us. And somebody will find us irresistible when every time we talk to them, we say such positive things about them. You know, and I have said, I may have said last week, but people don't remember very much of what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And if we make people feel appreciated and recognized and feel good, then they'll remember that, and they'll want to be around us. We'll become irresistible. So just before I dive into a couple of our micro actions that are designed to help us recognize other people, I want to ask some of you who were here last week, we tried several different micro actions. We talked about things. Did anybody try something? And if you did, you can unmute yourself and jump in. If you didn't, that's okay, or you could put it in chat. I'm just going to scroll through my screens here, see if anybody's waving their hands. No, okay, so that's all right. You're going to want to try some of the ones we do today. Now, I'm going to just give you a little bit of information about learning just before we jump in. And I learned this myself from cooking shows. My wife and I watch cooking shows. Oh my gosh, we watch so many cooking shows. Do you know, I don't know how to cook any better today than I did 5 years ago. It's because I don't actually ever cook any of the stuff that I watch them cook. And even if they're giving recipes, I'm only interested in watching them cook. I'm not actually intending to cook myself. And I think that's what actually happens an awful lot in messages and speaking, or we listen to TED Talks. Oh, that's interesting. But what I'd like to encourage you to do is just for the next half hour, think about being intentional about doing one of the things we talk about today. You say, I am going to do one of the things Neal talks about. And now that's going to change the way you listen, and you're going to write things down. And just one of them will make a difference for you. And I think you will be happily surprised. But this could just be a cooking show where we talk a lot about being kind, and then we go on to our other stuff. So let me encourage you to intend to do one of the things that we're talking about. And the first one is very related to my pager and to everything I've been saying. It's make sure that they are the point. Make sure the other person is the point. Now, I'll just do a quick thing to say, this is our book. We have 30 micro actions that eliminate, we said negativity wherever you work, but these will eliminate negativity in your home, with your kids and grandkids, with your spouse, with the grocer and the people around you. If we practice some of these micro actions, it can reduce negativity wherever we are. So we call the book Workplace Positivity, but honestly, if you were to buy the book, you'd find these very helpful. Just replace the name office with the word home, and you're good to go. So we have 30 micro actions, and every one of them has an exercise, a worksheet that helps you think through, if you intend to do this, we're going to give you some help so that you can. And the first one is make sure that they are the point. And I'm going to pull that up. I've got my book. Oh, you can't see that because I just so I've got my copy of Workplace Positivity, and number 12. I had it all marked and everything. Number 12 is make sure they are the point. And what we say in the exercise is that effective, enthusiastic, and motivated. That's what we want for ourselves. That's what we want for our friends and relatives. We want to be effective and enthusiastic and motivated. And some people, they just need a little extra effort on our part to help them be those things. And so when you think about a situation that's challenging, maybe there's some conflict, maybe there's some disagreement. Has anybody had any disagreement with anybody else in your family or friends about, I don't know, think about any number of things. It's a lot. Well, when we go into those conversations, if our point is to correct them, to change their opinion, or just to express our own anger or frustration, I don't know, that only goes so far and not very far at all. But if you make them make sure that they are the point, then you're going to react very differently. When my daughters and I have a difference of opinion, I really don't want the end of that conversation to be them getting up and walking out, or me, or the whole conversation to shut down. So I shift the way I respond. I do a lot more listening. I do a lot more thinking. And so this has a lot of permutations, a lot of things you could think about, the way we react in a normal situation. I know that with our kids, when you have little kids, you want to be sure you communicate correctly and you fix them or you correct them. But when they're adults, not so important. The most important thing is maintaining the relationship. So the first thing is make sure that they are the point. And when we do that, then the second thing becomes really obvious, really easy, and very natural. And that is to praise publicly, to praise publicly. Now hold on, I gotta turn my fan on. Praise publicly is a section in Workplace Positivity. It's such an important concept that we actually give you 4 micro actions to learn how to praise publicly. And one of these is this one. It's called Say It in a Hallway. Now, you guys may actually have a hallway in your home that you could say something positive and praise somebody publicly in the hallway. But this, because we've designed this book for workplaces, in an office, there's hallways all the time. So I want you to imagine this happening. Somebody's walking down the hallway And this is what I encourage managers and supervisors to do. And maybe they're heading to somebody's office, and about 10 feet from the office, they kind of call out, not shout, but loud enough for that person to hear 10 feet away in their own office. Hey, Sue, I just want to tell you what an amazing job you did the other day on that project. And then I'm walking the whole time, and I walk right into their room. It's very natural, and we continue the conversation. Who else heard that? Everyone. But I didn't have to, nobody likes to be embarrassed or stood up or pointed out, but I was very intentional about praising her publicly, not just for her. I could have walked in to her office, closed the door, and say, I just want to tell you what a good job you did. Oh, well, that'd be nice. But how much better is it that everybody got to hear? And I just did this recently, last week. I have been, for the last couple months, I've been volunteering at a vaccination center here in San Diego, and very excited. We just vaccinated our 20,000th person last week. So that was a big celebration. But a few weeks ago, on our 10,000th, we had a big celebration. There was a big sign outside. And I was talking to the director, the volunteer director, over all of the people there, hundreds of people volunteering. And there was a kind of a crowd around us. And I just said, hey, Margaret, has anyone told you what a great job you've done getting us to that 10,000? Oh, she lit up. And like a great leader, she said, oh, it wasn't me. It was all of you. Of course, that's what a good leader does. I didn't let her off the hook. I said, yeah, thank you for that, Margaret. But you know what? You led us. You really did just a great job getting us to 10,000. And I wanted you to know that. Now, I was almost having a private conversation with her in front of 10 other people. So I got immediate feedback because I walked away. I'm in traffic. They gave me a job they assumed I could do, which was to wave a wand and say, go that way. So, I haven't messed up yet, so that's good. But my daughter happened to be volunteering out in the area where we had been, and somebody just said, wow, that was really kind of him. And my daughter, she didn't quite roll her eyes, but my daughter, she kind of said, well, that is kind of his business. That is kind of what he does. He's a kindness coach. And they said, oh, he's really good at it. Why? Because I practiced one micro action. It didn't take a lot of energy, a lot of effort. It was actually very natural and authentic. I really did mean it. But I wanted to put Margaret first. I wanted to make Margaret the point. It would have been so easy to just focus on all the people driving up and everybody else, but Margaret was the point. And so it was easy for me to praise her publicly and, in a sense, give a shout out in the hallway. So that's the first thing, to make sure they're the point and to praise publicly, and the example is to do a shout out in the hallway. The second thing is to develop internal irresistibility. Develop internal irresistibility. So the first one is make sure they're the point, but the second one is let's ourselves become irresistible on the inside. And so there's sections in our book designed to have micro actions that help us change ourselves. We become kinder people, and acts of kindness becomes a natural outcome. And the first one is, we call it reject thoughts that don't serve you. Reject thoughts that don't serve you. That's our micro action number 23. And anybody ever have negative thoughts? You almost say, when don't we? when does an hour go by that we don't have a negative thought, that we say something critical in our head about somebody we know or somebody we read about? And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. Maybe they do. Maybe we are perfectly accurate in our judgment, but we have critical and negative thoughts. But sometimes it goes even bigger than that, and it goes into this area of daydreaming. So I don't know about you, but I catch myself daydreaming in the car. I used to have about a 40-minute commute. Now my commute is like all of ours, right? From the bedroom to the kitchen. We haven't been out for a year, but you know, we used to drive to work. And so I would drive to work, and after about 20 minutes from home, I would realize I haven't been paying any attention to the road. I've been thinking about a situation at work, and I am worked up. I was thinking, well, I'm going to say this, and then, you know, they're going to say that, and then I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to send this email. Oh, this is going to be great. They're going to call up so-and-so. And then I had this entire scenario working out. Oh my gosh, it was, you know, it often ends up with, you know, me quitting and moving to another state. So it just, you know, it's not particularly, you know, helpful. And that is an example of thoughts that don't serve me. Because if I stay in that mode right up until the time I park and walk into the building, oh, let's hope I don't run into the person I've been thinking about, right? So to reject thoughts that don't serve you. And how we do that is to become conscious that we're doing that. One of our micro actions, I may have shared it last week, was think about what you're thinking about. So as soon as I think about what I'm thinking about, and I realize I'm thinking very negatively, I'm thinking a thought that doesn't serve me, now I have the chance to reject it. Now I can let it go. And I think we have somebody who's not muted, so they're on. I'm seeing their screen. So what I did with that thought was that I would begin to say, in my mind, I would say something positive about the person that I had been thinking negatively about. Not everyone is 100% negative or bad. If it's a friend or the grocer that we were at, or the person that we didn't agree with in an article that we read, or one of our children or grandchildren, I can think of something positive about them. I can reject the negative thought and replace it with a positive thought. And so that's the idea of reject thoughts that don't serve you. There's some people who do major consulting with organizations, and one of the things that they recognize is that we oftentimes put ourselves in a really bad situation because we say things like, well, I just had to say it, you know, well, I'm sorry, but I just gotta say, you know what, we don't have to say. Nobody's making us say it. If we're thinking a thought that is gonna come across poorly and maybe make the person challenge us, we don't have to say it. We could learn to respond differently. So reject thoughts that don't serve you. And one that comes along right after that is one called memorize a mantra. Memorize a mantra. And I don't know if you can see this, but Nicole, my co-author, says replace the old thought with a new thought. Find a favorite quote or mantra and commit to memorizing it, so that each time you need to reject a thought, you've got this other one. Now, Nicole, she has a mantra. Now we call it a mantra. You can be a, a little phrase or, a nice thought, but hers, and see if maybe some of you recognize where she got this. Hers are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, meekness, self-control. I don't know if I got all 9 of those, but if you you may recognize those, and those are Nicole's, and she can repeat that. But I'll tell you about a mantra that I have that has been really powerful in my life, and it's this: don't stop when you're going up. Don't stop when you're going up. Now, what does that mean? Well, I was doing some running, and I live at the top of a hill. And what I would do is that I would make my running route be so that the end of my run was to go up that hill. And everything in me, in my mind, kept saying, just stop here. You don't have to go up. I mean, you've already run. You can stop and walk the rest of the way. In fact, you're supposed to have a cool down period. It's amazing how much we can try to convince ourselves to stop doing something we should be keeping doing, when we're uncomfortable. And so I memorized a mantra: don't stop when you're going up. And the point of that is I can stop when I get to the top of the hill. And you can almost, if you were imagining running and breathing, you can almost hear that. Don't stop, take a breath when you're going up. And I would repeat that all the way up the hill, and I would make it to the top. And I now use that in many areas. When I am in a situation that I'm writing or I'm working on a new topic and I'm tired and I want to switch over on my phone or my computer to a YouTube video about something, I'll say, don't stop when you're going up. I can get over and take a break when I finish, when I get through the hard part. And so it applies to so many areas, and I own it as my own. So imagine if you had a mantra that you could own when something happens that's negative, when something happens, when someone says something that doesn't fit quite right. And instead of having a negative response or a thought that doesn't serve, instead you can just repeat that mantra of yours. And I think that helps us be irresistible. And then the third point, so we said, make sure it's about them and develop internal irresistibility. And the third one is get your inside outside. Get your inside outside. You know how there's an old saying that, if you're happy, let your face know it. Because, try smiling. That's one of our micro actions. I mean, that's a pretty small micro action, smile, right? And so get your inside outside by getting that spirit, that heart, that attitude, that expression of kindness that you feel inside, get it outside. And the first one is that we talk about is smile. So Nicole says, the way people greet us is important. Would you rather have someone smile at you or frown? Your initial reaction can change the trajectory of the interaction. So here, I just want you to practice this with me. On the count of 3, everybody frown. All right? 1, 2, 3. You do that. Okay, keep that frown. How do you feel? Well, what did I do? I slumped. I looked down. I grimaced. I can feel the energy draining out of me. Okay, now on the count of 3, smile. 1, 2, 3. All right, so we smile. What did I immediately sit up and I look up And I look right at you, and I'm anticipating seeing a smile back. And so practice smiling. It's amazing how grim some of us look in our natural resting state. You know, Zoom, if it's done anything positive, one of it is that we get to see ourselves on screen. And it's like we should look at ourselves and go, oh my gosh, I should, maybe I should comb my hair. Maybe I should, but maybe I should smile. And so in order to get your inside outside, number one, smile. And number two, and this is our last micro action, and it's going to seem so obvious, but we don't do this. So I want you to be intentional about doing this. And it is look for the good. It's our micro action number 25. Look for the good. And this is one of Nicole's, and she says, what we look for is what we'll see. When it comes to rewriting our internal dialogue and beginning that cascade of positive events in our lives, we have to see the good. So look for the good. And Nicole uses this example. She says, imagine if I sent you into almost any situation. How about a doctor's office? Imagine going into your doctor's office and heading up to the receptionist. And Nicole says, what if I were to tell you, I want you to be a productivity consultant for a little bit, put that hat on, and I want you to look for everything that isn't working, everything that could be better. Look for the problems. Do you think you could find some? Oh my gosh, you do that, you put that hat on, and we'll find so many mistakes, so many problems, even things that aren't problems. We'll go, I think that's a problem. But if instead of that, you say before you walk into that doctor's office, look for the good, look for what's working well. Oh my gosh, it completely changes the way we approach things. When we walk in, we're going to be looking around and we say, oh, look at that. They have a lot of magazines on the coffee table. Hey, I wonder if they're recent. Oh, look, they're even current. And wow, you know, everything seems very chipper and there's a lot of light and they've got green plants. That's all good. And you walk up and you greet the person at the desk and she or he greets you nicely. That's good too. You could make a long list of things that were good about any situation if when we start it, we look for the good. So the next time you're going to have a conversation with someone, the next time you're going to send an email or anything like that, the next time we do anything, the next time you listen to, if you listen to church online and you watch something online and you know, go into it with the spirit of look for the good. Because I can tell you, a lot of people don't do that and they just naturally look for the bad. And I can catch myself doing that as well. And boy, you can find it if you look for it. So instead, look for the good. Now, I want to wrap up by saying, we started this by saying, become irresistible. And if you're like me, you might say, well, I don't know about this. Maybe I don't feel like smiling. Maybe there's situations where smiling isn't the right response. And looking for the good, I'm a realist. You know, I'm practical. I don't necessarily think I should just always talk about what's good. I think I should point out sometimes what's not working. Okay. I'm not telling you not to do that. All I'm telling you is how to become irresistible. Which person's going to be irresistible? The one who comes in and says, great job. Wow, look at this. Hey, such and so. I'll tell you a story. I won't tell you the whole situation, but last week we had a situation when I was volunteering, and it was potentially very negative. And I won't tell you what it was because they corrected it right away. But I went to, after the whole day was over, I went to Margaret, the volunteer coordinator, the one I talked about earlier. In a group, I had praised her publicly and I told her what a great job she did. I took her aside and I said, Margaret, can I share something with you and just give you a little bit of feedback and make one suggestion? And she looked at me like, what are you going to say? And I said, this is what I saw today. And I think that probably needs to be changed. I think people would take that the wrong way. And she stopped. She wasn't quite sure what to say. And the person standing next to her, which was one of the directors of the program, said, he said, I'll own that. I made that decision earlier today. Thank you for pointing out. We never saw the piece that you saw, but now that you pointed out, we're going to change that. There's room for being realistic and making corrections, of course. But who would Margaret rather hear that from? The person who's constantly complaining, the person who has no positive thing to say, or the one that just complimented her in front of everyone else? Oh, I think she was happy to hear it from me. I got an email the next day that said, Neal, would you take a look at this email? I want to correct this publicly. And would you just check and see if it, she didn't need to send that. She doesn't report to me. I'm a volunteer, but she included me in the email. It's not because I'm irresistible, but she was willing to hear that from me. So I just give you all of these to say, we can become irresistible. And I'll finish with one last story. And this comes from Nicole Phillips, my writing partner. So Nicole started at all of her speaking events, she started doing something. Does anybody remember the old game, Heads Up, 7-Up? Oh my gosh, it brings back memories. As soon as we mention it, all of us who were, when we were in kindergarten, we'd play this on rainy days when you couldn't go outside. You'd have Heads Up, 7-Up, and everybody would put their heads down on the table. And then they would lift their thumb, right? And then there would be 7 people who would walk around the room and they would tap their thumb, somebody else's thumb. And then they would all quietly go back to the front of the room and everybody would look up. And if you had your thumb tapped, you were supposed to guess who tapped it. And if you did it, if you got it correct, you got to be up front next time. And so Nicole plays this game with executives, a room full of business people, men and women in their suits. And she says, okay, everybody put your head down, thumbs up. And they play the game. And in the debrief that comes afterwards, she says to them, what were you thinking when you had your head down and your thumb up? And so many people would say, I was thinking, pick me, touch my thumb. Wow, that is a visceral reaction that comes out of that, that little kindergartner that's in our heart, that's down deep inside us, that's never gone away, that wants to be recognized, that wants to be acknowledged and appreciated. And it's the little boy in me that wanted my wife to page me to say she was thinking about me. And she does think about me now a little more often since our daughters are grown. But I want to help you become irresistible by recognizing people want to be recognized, noticed, appreciated. They want to be praised. And as the more we do that naturally, authentically, using micro actions of kindness, the more irresistible we become. And I really think the better world we make. So I'm gonna leave it there. And Elisa, are there any questions that people have that are either in the chat, or does somebody have a question?